Well, we begin with a wake-up call at a troubled White House this morning. CNN's James Carville says it's time to start firing people while some Jewish and black leaders back away from a president they helped elect. Yet, just hours ago, President Obama says his chances of re-election are much higher than when he was first elected. So what's standing in his way? Well, new job numbers are grim. A solar power company goes belly up, along with more than $500 million in taxpayer loans. Terrorists launch new attacks in Afghanistan. And in special elections, Republicans win 2 congressional races. Senior political editor Mark Preston is in Washington for us. You know, Mark, Carville says it's time for the White House to panic. He made a lot of news yesterday, and since those remarks, a lot of response from within the Beltway.
Yeah, no question about that, Kara. In fact, I think the White House pushed the panic button probably several months ago. They just haven't telegraphed it to us yet. You know, you have to look no further than a poll that came out in Virginia in the past couple days that showed that President Obama has a 62% disapproval rating with independents in that state. That is devastating to him. Remember, Virginia was one of the states that he flipped back in 2008 to win the presidency. But it's not just Virginia. North Carolina is another state that they're concerned about. And then go out west to Colorado, another state that they flipped as well back in 2008. And then there's the 2 big states, Kara. There's Ohio and there is Florida as well. These are all states that he needs to win in 2012 in order to win a second term. You know, Kara, a lot of people don't think the president has the fire in the belly anymore. In fact, I was talking to a Democratic strategist this morning, and what he said to me was, very simply, instead of when you're selling the whole idea of the jobs bill, don't say pass the bill, say yes we can, we need more, yes we can, Kara.
So Mark, if you look back in history, you know, Carter drew a primary challenger, so do you think this is looking remotely possible for this president?
You know, Kira, this is something the left has talked about whenever they get angry enough at President Obama and they want him to move more their way. But, you know, his biggest challenger would have been somebody within his own administration, and that is Hillary Clinton. But the Secretary of State told our own Alison Kosik last week that that's pretty much not the case. In fact, let's listen to what she had to say.
What's the likelihood that you're going to challenge President Obama in the primary? You know, you've got Dick Cheney in your court.
Oh, yeah, it's below 0.
Simply put, right there, it is below 0. So, you know, facing a primary challenge right now, Kara, is not President Obama's biggest challenge. His biggest challenge is turning the economy around, because turning the economy around very likely will hinge upon whether he wins re-election in 2012. Kara?
Okay, Mark Preston, thanks so much. And in just about 10 minutes, we're going to hear from Democratic strategist James Carville. The CNN political contributor will tell us why he wants the White House to start firing people. So as the president gets hammered from all sides, he will likely take another hit when he travels to New York for the UN General Assembly meeting. CNN's Max Foster has that now for us from London. Max, GOP frontrunner Rick Perry even writing an editorial in the Jerusalem Post this morning saying Obama has made unfortunate errors when it comes to relations with Israel. So what's at stake for the Palestinian statehood movement?
Well, this is all about this bid for Palestinian statehood, and I think broadly speaking, when you look at world commentary today, it's the United States and Israel who are alone, really, in opposing Palestinian statehood. Let's have a look at the Jerusalem Post. These are all guest editorials we've got for you today. The Palestinians' illegitimate UN gambit. That's the headline. The United States should oppose this measure by using our veto in the Security Council, as President Obama has pledged, and by doing everything we can to weaken support for the unilateral declaration of Palestinian statehood in the General Assembly, even at this late date. But as I say, other papers around the world agree to differ. The Gulf News in the UAE saying Britain must vote for Palestinian state. Britain has a permanent seat on the Security Council, of course, as well as the US. If the leading European powers side with the US, the Palestinian initiative will be seen as a failure. If an EU majority backs recognition in some form, the Palestinians can claim symbolic victory. And the China Daily going on to say Palestinian statehood in its headline. If the US chooses to fly in the face of world opinion and block the Palestinian UN bid next week, not only will Israel become more isolated, but tensions in the region will be heightened even more. This is going to be a very big story next week, Kara.
Yeah, we'll be talking about it with you, Max. Appreciate it. Rebel fighters are targeting the last remaining strongholds of Gaddafi loyalists. These rebel fighters now say that they control the roads in and out of Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte and residents of Bani Khalid, another pro-Gaddafi town. They've been fleeing in advance of another assault by the rebels. Meanwhile, representatives of Libya's National Transitional Council are en route to Niger. They want the return of Gaddafi loyalists who fled there, including one of the deposed dictator's sons, Saudi. CNN's Nick Robertson is live in the Nigerian capital. Nick, has Libya's NTC delegation arrived yet?
They're not here so far, and it looks like the reception they might get, while hospitable, might not get the result they want. The Justice Minister has already been on record saying he's not sending Saudi Gaddafi back to Libya to face justice because he's here as a humanitarian guest, that he is in the country seeking shelter, and there's a war going on in Libya. So the government has so far said they won't send him back. So, the early indications are not looking too good for the Libyans at the moment. Kira.
What's the expectation from the Nigerian government? I mean, do you think they'll give the Gaddafi loyalists up?
It seems not. I mean, public opinion here would support them as well. We were just at the Central Mosque, the Grand Mosque here, which was donated and built by Muammar Gaddafi a couple of decades ago, and people remember him well. They say, look, he's one of the only leaders. No one in the West has come here and spent money in Africa like he has. So they're well disposed towards him and his family right now. So they don't. There's no internal political pressure on the leaders here either to hand back Saudi Gaddafi and any of the other military commanders that have come here as well. So this government seems, apart from international pressure, it seems on relatively sure footing. It can stick with this decision and hold out on it right now, Kira.
Our Nick Robertson live out in Niger for us. We'll follow the story. Nick, thanks so much. Then back here in the U.S., a new book exposing egos and infighting with President Obama's economic team. And according to the New York Times, some of the claims may make you pretty mad. CNN's Karina Huber is at the New York Stock Exchange with a closer look. So, Karina, the book doesn't come out for a few days, right? But you've had a chance to get a little sneak peek at it.
You're right. Well, Kira, the New York Times actually got an early copy of the book, which is hitting stores on Tuesday. Its title is Confidence Men, Wall Street, Washington, and the Education of a President. And it's written by former Wall Street reporter Ron Suskind. He interviewed over 200 people, including the president, for this book. And essentially, it looks at what was going on in the White House during the financial crisis of 2008. It is a very critical book. It says the White House economic team was plagued with internal rivalries and a Treasury secretary that dragged his feet on some major decisions. Now, one point of contention was the Citigroup bailout. The New York Times is saying some decisions, including one to overhaul the debt-ridden Citibank, were carried out sluggishly or not at all by a resistant Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner. Now, at that time, Obama wanted Citigroup overhauled or even dissolved. Geithner at the time, though, reportedly was against it and resisted it. Keep in mind, though, Geithner has denied this in the book. In the end, we know the story. Citi got a $50 billion bailout and wasn't overhauled. But essentially, this book shows extreme dissension at a time when the economy was a mess. We had bank bailouts, car bailouts, and a stock market that was tanking. Kira?
Now, what's this talk about the dissatisfaction among women on President Obama's staff?
Well, the book is claiming that some female staff members often felt bruised. So communications director Anita Dunn and economic advisor Christina Romer told the president they were talked over in meetings by male colleagues. The Times is saying that Romer once passed a note to Larry Summers threatening to walk out of a dinner with Obama and outside economists after the president polled his guests for the recommendations but failed to recognize her. Now, the Times is saying Romer is now backtracking, saying that this was all in jest, it was all a joke, and saying that she said it was lighthearted and she wouldn't have walked out on the president. Now, the book also points the finger at Larry Summers, who was the chairman of the National Economic Council. It says he was heavy-handed in the decision-making process. So there's a lot of second-guessing about the new president at that time, who's a young president, and all of that slowed the process. Kira?
All right, Karina. A lot of people, I'm sure, will be buying that book. Checking stories cross country now in Texas. The U.S. Supreme Court halted today's scheduled execution of Dwayne Buck, issuing a temporary stay of his sentence while the court reviews his case. Buck was convicted of killing 2 people back in 1995. And in San Diego, a police raid targeting suspected illegal immigrants is caught on tape. Customs agents swarmed the dock at Quivira Basin yesterday. 15 Mexican nationals were arrested. 6 are believed to be smugglers. And in Utah, the motorcyclist who was rescued from a fiery crash earlier this week is out of the hospital and talking about the near brush with death. But more importantly, to Brandon Wright, is thanking the bystanders who turned into good Samaritans.
I just wanted to thank all the heroes that put their lives on the line to save mine. I'm forever in debt. I can't thank them enough. I just hope they know how much they mean to me.
Doctors expect Wright to fully recover from his injuries.